Hello and welcome to Flint Talk Radio. My name is Sam Jahari and I'm coming to you live from Flint here in this great city of ours. I represent Community Parent, and Community Parent was started a little over 3 years ago. And it was after losing my daughter and another girl that we lost in our town to addiction, to heroin overdoses. And I really come to you today with a really heavy heart. Tomorrow would have been my daughter's 21st birthday, and I get all choked up, about this time of the year. But from losing her, we've come a long ways, and we've done a lot of good things. And sometimes we could have all our life planned out for us. But God just says, I got something else I want you to do. 3.5 years ago, I would have never thought that, I would take up this cause and be doing what I'm doing. In a little over 3.5 years, we've gone in front of over 45,000 kids, and we do the Chasing the Dragon presentation, which is, it started out with the heroin overdoses, but as I started educating myself, there's more to it than just heroin. It's all drugs in great detail. As I was struggling with my daughter's addiction, I was to believe that this thing was about choice, and why didn't she just stop? And I begged her to just stop using. And I really never understood till after she was gone, that this is not a choice that these kids make. Maybe it's a choice that first time, to pick up alcohol bottle, or it's a choice to smoke that first joint. It's a choice to even maybe to take that pain pill or the opiate. But I found out that 10% of us, we have what is called brain disease. It's a gene that 80% of the time we inherit from our own family members of this addiction. And the choice of making that first alcohol drink or the first joint or whatever, it's playing Russian roulette. And it's a place where we go that it's hard to recover from. 10% of us, we have these addiction genes, and 80% we inherit from our own family. The other 20%, I guess, is environmental. Okay, but there's been a rise in this deaths of heroin, and everybody says, "Oh, heroin is making a comeback." Well, the big thing is, in the early 1990s, we were giving out pain pills to people that were dying. We were trying to make their last days on earth as comfortable as possible. But the drug companies, they decided, hey, there's a lot of money that we're losing here. And they went heavy into treating pain. As you walk into a doctor's office, there's a little chart with these smiley faces, down to these frowns, 1 through 10, and the first thing they ask you is, where's your pain level at, 1 through 10. So the treatment of pain, all of a sudden, we have a lot more addictions coming out on the surface. And what happens is, as doctors give you these pain pills, they're also called opiates, we become addicts. And as we become addicts, you know, this 10% of us, it's like I said, it's playing Russian roulette. So as we become addicts, more than likely what happens is the doctors, they say, hey, you're an addict, and I'm not going to give you any more pain pills. At that point, now you are willing to do anything and everything to get these opiates. And, you know, that's what heroin is. It's an opiate. It's a very, very strong, I guess, pain pill or opiate. So when your doctor turns his back on you, you turn to the street, and sooner or later, 80% of us that have an addiction to opiates will turn to the heroin. And 80% of most heroin users, that's how they started. They started with the pain pills. So, you know, the big thing as parents, we need to lock up our medicine cabinet. We need communication. You know, it's not just kids that are addicts. A lot of parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts that struggle with this disease. And you know, as a society, how we wanna take care of this is we keep building more prisons, and we keep making more prison time for these addicts, because you know, it would cost us a lot less to get people treated than to house them in prisons. And as a society, we keep making the you know, the same mistakes, or that we keep doing the same things. And I don't know who said, but you keep doing the same thing with the same results, you know, you're just a butthead. Putting it plain, you know, plain and simple. It didn't say it like that, but that's how I'm going to tell you. In the early 70s, Nixon started this war on drugs, and this is where we're at today. And what happens is, I say 80% of our prisons are people with mental health and drug-related. That's why they're in our prisons. And again, like I said, it costs us a lot more to house these people than to actually treat them and get them ready to come back in the real world and be productive. I heard on the news a few days ago, California is gonna let out all the prisoners that are non-violent crimes. They're gonna let them out because it just costs them too much to house them. Well, most of these non-violent offenders either have a mental health issue or they're drug related. And a lot of times addicts, you know, they have a mental health issue going on too. And that's why they self-medicate. Depression, bipolar, you know, all these things. Schizophrenia, all these different things, you know, they're related to, you know, addicts. Not always, but more and more addicts have something else going on also. As you know, as we found out, Robin Williams, when he died, you know, they always talked about that he was an addict and he struggled with addiction, but nobody ever really talked too much about his depression. And if you look at this person, you would never think that he was an addict, or he was depressed, because he was a comedian and he made us laugh. And a lot of times we don't look past the smile. A lot of times we don't see past that person to really know what's going on with them. And
You know, the roots of comedy actually are very dark. Actually, I mean, if you actually what we laugh at often is kind of tragic or sad or painful. I mean, you hear people making jokes about you know, wives cheating on their husbands or vice versa, and we make a joke about that.
exactly,
And look at I mean, look at what you're talking about. You're talking about betrayal, about hurt feelings, about emotions that I don't even want to fathom. And so, I mean, when you're looking at Robin, and then retrospectively, and he did he did hint at his depression on a couple occasions. He had postings on Facebook about, it's not, but it's, he found out it's actually worse to be with somebody who makes you feel alone rather than just actually being alone.
exactly.
And I think that but if you look at the humor he did and stuff like that, and retrospectively again, you'd have to see that he definitely had indications there that he was seriously depressed. And he just reminds me of the old joke about this guy who went to the doctor. He's just feeling depressed, out of it, and he didn't feel like he could go on with life. And he was talking to his family doctor, not a psychiatrist, but doctor says, "Oh, you should just go see this clown at this carnival. He's so funny, he could crack you up. I mean, that guy just pulls such great stunts." And the patient stopped. He goes, "Doctor, you don't understand. I'm that clown." So I mean, it's like we put on this false front. I mean, it's like we're wearing masks. I mean, I don't want to get too really bizarre on this, but I mean, we do wear masks. We have to. Society expects that. I mean, let's face it. When you go by somebody and say, "How you doing?" you expect to say, "Oh, fine," or "Oh, I'm not feeling too good." But yeah, that's about it. You just want a nutshell, summation of what's going on. I mean, it's awfully hard to sit down and try to. It does drain you. I mean, you do. I don't see how anybody can start taking away and walking away, hearing all this stuff, and just walk away and just put it behind them. You're always wondering, well, did the person get help? Did they go to the right person? Did I send them the right way? If you're in a position to try to assist them, and we all are to some degree, but I mean, it's just that I think addiction though is just like something. It's like borderline. If you drew to ask too many questions, they think you're judging them, and let's face it, there might be some of that going on. You're evaluating at least their condition. So I mean, there is evaluation, which is a form of judgment. Okay, you might not be saying you're a pathetic loser, but you're saying you're saying you got a problem. Well, nobody wants to hear that.
Well, and that's what a lot of people that are addicts, they get on the defensive, when you confront them with it, because a lot of times they're trying to cover up what they're going through and what they're feeling, and when you bring that in the surface, they get on the defensive and they start screaming and yelling at you like you don't know what's going on. But as an addict is the biggest liar. They are a thief. They will do anything for the drug. So a lot of times what you do is it's not that you stop loving them, but you just don't believe anything that comes out of their mouth. You're always, yes, you did this, even if they didn't. That's how it becomes. It becomes a war between you and your loved ones. The whole thing is we need to hate the addiction, but we can't hate that human aspect of them because they don't have the control in their hands. They have, it's a brain disease, and their brain is just they're inapt. That's the best way to describe an addict. They're just inapt, and somehow that drug or the alcohol, it just kind of like they feel complete when they're buzzed out of it. Even though it's like you look at somebody that's just nodding out and they're just out of it. Where's the high in that? What can make someone feel like that's good? Which it's not. It's because they're inapt and they have a brain disease. So it's just a different. What we want to do is there's only one way to bring something out on the surface is we talk about it. And that's the big thing why I do this is I want to bring this out on the surface. A lot of people, they don't want to discuss this. Okay, you think addicts only happen to losers or people that are down and out, that they come from a shitty ass family and stuff. But it happens, to the best of us. It happens to judges. It happens to policemen. It happens to politicians. It happens in every family. They are touched by drugs and alcohol. That means everybody. You know, I came across something, I think on Facebook. It's when somebody's down and out or underneath you, pick them up. You know, pick them up. Don't look down on them. Don't look down on them, because we do. We judge people, you know, from what we see. I tell you, you know, the way I was how I got from society. You know, my own family doctor that I've been going to for years, you know, once he knows my daughter is an addict, he sends me a letter. I don't want her coming to my office. You know, well, right away, you know, instead of just telling this doctor to where to stick it, you know, I thought, well, it's her choice. She's making these bad choices. So I felt the same way, you know. My daughter is making wrong choices. My daughter was so messed up, you know, they were going to take her to jail or to the detention center because she was a minor. When they caught her, she had done so much drugs, she was out of it. So they bring her into the magistrate. You know, they call me up. They said, we're taking her to the magistrate. You know, meet us at the courthouse. I said, okay. So I get there, you know, and my daughter's out of it. And of course, you know, I'm embarrassed. You know, you're making me look bad and this and that because I don't know any better. I don't know any better. So anyways, you know, the magistrate, he's worried about it. He says, I want her to go to the hospital. I want her to get checked out before we send her back to the detention center. Because at that point, my daughter had a tether. She cut the tether off and ran away from home. So when they caught her, she said she had done $700 worth of drugs. So she was out of it, you know. So they sent her to Hurley Medical Center or Hurley Hospital, and she's at an emergency, you know. As they're bringing her in, I get there, and you know, she's telling the doctor to give her some kind of drug to bring her down, and this doctor, she just starts yelling at her. You're doing this to yourself, you know. I got all these people that are sick, and you're doing this to yourself. I don't have to give you this. I don't have to do that. I don't, you know, this is what you're doing. And of course, at that point, you know, I'm getting pissed off. Not at the doctor. I'm getting pissed off more at my daughter. Because the perception I'm receiving is, again, this is her choice. She's doing this to herself because that's what the doctor's telling her. You're doing this to yourself. I got all these people that are sick that need a bed, and you are coming in here because you did this to yourself. I'm thinking, well, you know, this is somebody that's educated, that knows best. And she's yelling at her because, Brianna, this is the choices she's making. I remember that day, you know, she had ended up giving her something and she started to calm down. And I remember there was a deputy sheriff that was there waiting to take her to the detention center. And he's like, you know, why don't you listen to your dad? Why don't you stop doing this? You come from a good family. Why you keep doing this to yourself? And at that point, you know, I ended up just getting pissed off even more, you know. I'm here, you're embarrassing me, you know, all these people are looking at us. And I ended up, I turned her and walked away because I didn't know any better. Did I stop loving my child? Never. But I thought it was choice. This is what I was made to believe. You see, I never enabled my child. I turned to a system that I thought was there to help me. I turned to a system that I thought knew better. Because you see, I didn't know not much about addiction. And I thought they did. They were the professionals, supposedly. But they were just as fucked up as my daughter that was an addict. She was an addict because it wasn't in her hands. She was an addict because she had a sickness. And they looked at her like she was just a piece of shit, that she was doing this to herself. And that's what I got. And that's how I perceived everything. You see, because it didn't matter if it was, the police. It didn't matter if it was the judge. It didn't matter if it was the social worker. It didn't matter. They don't know. They haven't a freaking clue on what's going on or how to treat them. And their big thing is, let's just put them away. Put them in prison. Lock them up. Well, when somebody has diabetes or they have cancer, we don't do that. We get them treatment. But our treatment is we send them away. Get them out of society. Out of sight, out of mind. That's their philosophy. Well, I'm sorry, but you see, it's not just me that is affected. We are all affected. Because for Brianna, there's a million Briannas out there. And everybody is affected by it. Your neighbors, your family, everybody is affected. Even though it's 10%, we're all affected by it. We're all affected by it. Brianna she was the apple of my eye. I loved her to death. She was the first to make me a daddy. And as a father, I didn't know what a parenting was, but I tried to lead by example. And Brianna was just a great, great child. She just always had a smile on her face. And anybody that she came across fell in love with her because she had a heart. She just loved people. But my child, she struggled because her mom was an addict. And, at 3 years old, I went into our judicial system to fight for my daughter, to get custody of her. And at the time, Brianna was at my home for over 10 months. Her mom had dropped her off and never even really called to check on her because she was out doing drugs and doing everything else. Until about a week or 2 weeks before my daughter went back to her mom went into the judge's chambers or went into a courthouse and told the judge that I was going to take Brianna overseas and that I had her without having custody of her and I would not give her back. So this one day I come home from work and my wife was crying and I'm like, what's the matter? She said they came with the sheriff and they had a paper from the courthouse to take Brianna. And so at that point, I went into the court system fighting for Brianna. And at the time, I remember I got an attorney, and the first time we went into in front of a judge, the judge said she will stay with her mom. Oh, by the way, I had to turn in my passport and everything else because I was going to leave the country with Brianna, which, I've been a citizen of the United States since we came here in '69. And my father was a naturalized citizen of the U.S. Anyway, I had to turn in my passport, and the judge was saying that she's going to stay with her mom, and then we're going to open up this case. And she said, we'll come back in 2 weeks. I said, I'm telling my attorney to do something, you know. And she's like, Mr. Jahari, you know, we'll plead our case in 2 weeks when we come back. I says, how can we plead our case when her mom's got track marks on her arm, she's an addict, and they just want to give my daughter to her? I don't care who she is, you know. We can't wait 2 weeks. And I blurted out, you know, how can you do this, Your Honor? You know, she's got track marks on her arm. And this judge, she looked at me and she said, you shut your mouth. Another word out of you and I'm sending you to jail. So a few days later, I get a call from a lady that her mom was living with. And she said, you have to get your daughter out of here. I had the cops here till 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to get her out of here. How can I get her out of there, you know? I said, please, will you come in the courtroom and tell this judge this? And I remember I called my attorney, and she made another plea to go back into court, but we still had to wait. We still had to wait until the 2 weeks or whatever it was before we got back in front of the judge. And at that point, that girl did come and testify with me. And at that point, you know, from the original thing too, Tina was mandated to go to a rehab, which she never did. So after 2 weeks, the judge said to her, did you go to rehab? And she's like, nope. And at that point, the judge said, okay, full custody to Mr. Jahari. It was like, wow, you know, it took her to lie or whatever before this judge would see the truth. It's crazy, you know. I was always quiet, you know. I never really cared for our judicial system. I don't feel justice is always served in our court systems. So, you know, I never really spoke up or really just went along, you know, for the ride, whatever it was. But after Brianna died, it's like it opened my eyes for the first time. Not that I was really blind, but I refused to really see. My head was in the sand, and enough was enough. I woke up, and I want all you to wake up. I want you to see the truth of what's happening around us. You know, I was listening to CNN the other day, and there's this drug that just came up for cancer treatment. And they said, there's another drug that does exactly the same thing, and it costs about $5,000 a year. Here's a new drug that came out, and it costs $12,000 a year. It does the same thing as this other drug. Nothing is really any better. So this hospital, they said, well, we're not going to utilize your drug because it's too much money. So what this manufacturer came back and said, okay, we'll give it to you at the same price, but you have to charge your patients the $12,000. Does that make any sense? Their big thing was, well, it costs so much to manufacture. It costs so much, you know, to bring this out, but this is what our charges are. You know, our government, they want to stipulate and they want to put these regulations on all our manufacturing and everything else, but they don't want to put any anything on these drug companies. You know, they have certain pills or certain drugs for cancer. It costs $120,000 a year. $120,000 a year. Who can afford this? That's even if you're on Medicaid, your cost is about $2,000 your copay. And what this doctor was saying, you know, this is where our government really needs to step in and say, you know, we need to give this to our people, because guess what? People that are looking at, well, what the hell? I want to leave some money for my family members or for my children. You know, they don't end up not taking their medication.
You know, years ago they had this thing. It was a big thing, and I don't know where it went to, but there was a thing called orphan drugs. And it was a drug pretty much similar to what you're talking about, or a series of drugs that are basically real costly to produce. And actually, a lot of times the pharmaceutical companies didn't do it, you know, engage in that, because there was such a small population needing these equipment, needing these drugs, that they just didn't make them. And there was legislation, and I don't know where it went, because basically the movement just kind of stalled. I mean, it was they popularized in a couple of shows, you know, episodes of regular TV series. And the thing is, the thinking was, why don't the government, if these are so costly, why doesn't, this is where I could see maybe instead of trying to socialize the entire medical system like we have currently going on, why don't we find things where we can actually take a little bit of money from the government, the taxpayers, to bolster, so anybody could be, you know, in that class where they need those kind of drugs that are expensive to produce, and, you know, supplement those pharmaceutical companies who do create these drugs, so they allow that cost is not borne by them, so their profit margins, and they still have to have a profit. I mean, I'm not going to demonize pharmaceutical companies totally, I'm not, but and another thing is too, it's like that was just stalled. That whole idea of the orphan drugs, I don't know where that went to. But see, this would have been a good thing to follow through with and see maybe where it's at, because that's exactly what it is. Well, now they got it. They go all their way. The pharmaceutical companies push and they make these drugs. They got to find a way to keep on now getting people out there, because they got to make the profit margin bigger so they can be nice to their stockholders.
Well, here's the thing, John. They make all this money, but when they sell it to international, to every other country, you can get it from all over the world 50 to 80% cheaper than you can here in the United States. Why is that?
Well, you know, that's a question that's got to be begged, because another thing is too, if you look at the World Health Organizations and all these other things out there, the United States citizens are paying for the bulk of that stuff, going out to other countries to assist, like for immunizations, whatever. I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying we know we're on board, we're on the hook for that. We got to feed the world, clothe the world, and immunize the world. That's our role, you know. And but what the hell are we doing to our own? We always slit our own people's throats. We always ignore our own people. Our infrastructure is failing. What are we doing? We're probably building up brand new buildings and highways and schools over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Flint doesn't even have much of a school system left. So exactly. I believe in limited spending as much as you can. But these are one of the things that they've taken on the role, is the government was taking the role of being the road producer and the creator and stuff like that. So damn it, they should start doing this. They had a pedestrian bridge just collapse over by Detroit just last week or so.
Yep,
Killed
exactly.
one person in the car.
Yeah,
see,
outside Dearborn.
I mean, this is insane. I mean, the drugs. I mean, the Obama's thing is to make everybody on the same system. So we'll deny you everybody, but hey, at least we're doing across the board. We're not giving you the medical access we already created. We're worried about everybody else getting in the world, but we're going to deny our own people who actually paid for all this.
Exactly.
That's insane.
Exactly. Yep. You know, why in America do we have to pay $120,000 a year for treatment for some medication for cancer, which they say this treatment drugs, they will help prolong your life for at least 5 years. So they know it works. But the whole thing is you have to stay on this medication. You have to stay on this medication. And this doctor, this head oncology doctor, he says, but across, outside the U.S., these governments says, no, I'm not paying for this. I'm not going to pay for that. And over there, you can go outside the U.S. and get the same medication 50 to 80% cheaper.
Instead, well, look what they did. They passed a law in this country so we can buy drugs from Canada to bring them back to the United States. The bulk of those drugs are made in the United States in the first place.
Exactly.
So why didn't the government just say, why don't we look at what we're doing here that's costing us so much here, and then we're still costing, I mean, they're still paying basically retail in Canada to bring it back here when it's manufactured here. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So they passed a law so allows it to ease up on the restrictions so it can be re-imported back into the United States from Canada. Does that make any damn sense? Why don't you just address the issue at the root of it so you can eliminate all that paperwork and actually have it in the hands of people without having to go through the rigmarole of bringing it back from Canada? This is asinine.
Exactly. I tell you what, I'm a businessman, and I believe in making a living and making a profit. But to make billions and billions and billions a quarter, I don't get it, and I don't understand why our government doesn't step in. Pharmaceutical companies, our oil companies, they're not even our oil companies. All the oil companies now are from somewhere else. We don't have any oil companies here in the U.S.
You know what's weird though? We allow companies. We'll put all these restrictions on people who are domestic producers and stuff. But then they get crunched down. They can't do it anymore, or they're reluctant to, and they go out of business. We'll allow other corporations for other people to do the same damn thing without the oversight that they're demanding from the domestic producers and stuff.
Exactly. We turn our backs on.
We shoot ourselves in the. We shoot our own people in the foot.
Well, I think that's what happens is instead of paying in taxes or whatever, somebody's getting paid. If it's our politician or somebody is getting money under the table, and that's what I
follow
think.
the money. Follow the money, and
exactly.
Every one of those politicians who are begging you now for money for the re-election to war chest, if that's not being utilized, that's going to be put into a bank account, and that's going to be they're going to walk out with. Obama right now is worth $14 million. What the hell has he ever done to attract that much money into his account?
Exactly.
In the first place, his book sales are dismal.
I think when he came into office, he was $1 million. He had $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million, which is significantly because let's face it, he and Michelle really weren't gainfully employed. So the question is, if I were to come up with $1 million with not having a visible means of support, as they would say, they would have the IRS crawling through every cavity to see where it comes from.
Well, they had the IRS on everybody that was against them or spoke out against them.
So it's like, I don't care for the sweetheart deals the Republicans make before we get, somebody calling us about that.
Exactly. You know what the whole thing is? We're not talking for Democrats or Republicans or whoever. What we're trying to say here is open your eyes, hold people accountable. Don't just keep your head down in the sand and say, they're goody two-shoes and this isn't, they're not corrupt. Because there's a lot of corruption. And there's a lot of bad people, I'm sorry to say. There's a lot of bad people that we think that they're just so goody two-shoes, okay? It cracks me up, how much money is spent on getting reelected or getting elected. They're saying, it's going to be $1 billion for this and $1 billion for this campaign. What the hell? Who's paying for that? The big money, the ones that want to keep the money, okay? Because it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or if you're a Republican, these big companies are paying both sides. So whoever gets elected, it's a win-win for them. And once you get elected, guess what? They come a-crawling. You owe me. I put you here. That's the truth of it. Let's go back to we the people. Because these politicians, they represent us, not big companies. They represent the people. But the people are sleeping. And we're tolerating this shit that's going on every day.
We took the what it is that most people I talk to, when you bring up criticism of politicians, they'll say, well, I don't know what they're up against. And then what it is this judge not less to be judged, mentality. And there's okay, you don't say the person's going to go to hell for doing, okay, if you want to go to a religious sense. But you do have a right to examine why they're doing what they're doing when it betrays your interest continuously, especially when they're saying they're representing you. Who the hell represents the people in this country? Nobody that I can see.
Nobody. That's I see that it doesn't matter. They've gone away from that, and the reason that they've gone away from that is because us as a people, we quit asking about what's rightfully ours and holding these people accountable. Hey, they work for you. They work for you. But if you're sleeping and you got your eyes closed, they're getting away with the shit. That's how it is, and that's the truth of it. That's the truth of it. We get sidetracked, from the drug thing because it's all related, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is related, okay? Guess what? If we want this war on drugs to go away, it would have went away a long time ago. But somewhere up in the heads or whatever that's letting it come through our borders. You don't think if we wanted to stop this, we could have? After the war in Afghanistan, all of a sudden all these poppies and everything's coming through. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's wake up.
Making deals with the devil so we can have one interest served at the cost of everything else.
Exactly.
I mean, and you got to examine, why are we in the Middle East for? And I don't want to, you and I talked about that today before we started the show, and I don't want to get into that, but I mean, it's like, not that we argued, but I mean, we're looking at it, basically, why are we in these three, we're basically going to be three wars right now. Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iran. We're going to be in Iran within a year, probably. So, I mean, why are we fighting this for? And we don't want to state the obvious because charges and screams and howls of protests and charges of racism and all that's going to be thrown at us. But why are we doing this? Why are we doing what we do and not concentrate on our own issues? We think we can save the world, but we're losing our own control. Stuff we can actually control in our own hands because we say, oh, we can't do anything about it. Or you accept these platitudes. Well, I'm sure they meant well with the politicians. Politicians don't mean well. They want to get elected so they can wear a suit and get lots of money so they can screw you again. That's what they're sociopaths. Exactly. They are all social. I don't care. And I'm sorry. I'm tired. I don't know anyone out there I trust. I don't. I've met local. I've met far. Guess what? They are corrupt people from the beginning. That's why they seek political office.
Well, I think a lot of people do have the right intentions. But what happens is once they get there, all this money is thrown at you and it happens, That's what happens. Greed sets in, and you lead off the wrong path. What I find is it doesn't matter how many people are sacrificed for the cause or for someone to get paid, and that's what it is. A lot of people are being sacrificed every day for the greed and the money. Look, drug companies, they want to keep you on any kind of medication for life. What happened to the healing part of it? Okay, here's the thing, okay? When something is like a supplement, okay, you can't say that it helps with this or it helps with that. But for a drug company, for some drugs to become available on the market, it only has to show that it works 25% of the time. 25% of the time. Where a lot of the supplements, they work a lot better off than these drugs, but because of the manufacturer and because of all the money that they put into people's hands, to get these laws made, the supplement companies can't say that it helps with anything.
Well, like years ago, my mom used to have a lot of urinary tract infections. Somebody told her that start drinking cranberry juice. Doctors would, that's nothing. Take this pill.
Yeah.
Now they prescribe that along with a course of treatment as a lot of cranberry juice. My mom said they probably basically had a scrammer to find if they can find stock in, the manufacturer of the cranberry juice before they start recommending it. And I hate to be that cynical, but I mean, if it seems like, if it doesn't matter what happens after you take it, okay, they're saying, okay, it doesn't have any effect, but we don't really want to suggest that. Why? Okay, if it doesn't have any effect, you can't see anything demonstrably wrong about it, then why not say try it? I mean, the Hippocratic Oath says first do no harm. Well, if it doesn't cause any harm, permit it, or to say, encourage it maybe, or suggest it. But with the drugs they're prescribing, violates the Hippocratic Oath to the core. They know. I mean, look at the list of possible side effects on any of this stuff.
Well, this is what I don't understand is, as a doctor, shouldn't you learn about nutrition? Shouldn't you learn about natural healing?
Doctors only probably had 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks of all the time they're in college that's connected to nutrition. An RN, on the average, has got much more training on nutrition than an MD or
Exactly.
even OD, osteopathic doctor.
Look, I'm not putting down. We're not putting down, the medical aspect, but what we're doing is we want you to open your eyes and hold everybody accountable for what's going on. Don't listen to just one doctor. Don't put all your faith in one doctor. If somebody says you got something going on or whatever, get another opinion. Get second opinion, third opinion. It doesn't matter. Sometimes we're so worried about that mighty dollar. I can't really afford this and I can't really afford that. You really can't afford to just put all your faith in these people. You can't afford to put all your faith in somebody, Look, they just sent a doctor to prison, that was saying that people had cancer where they didn't have nothing wrong with them. And he was getting rich off all the medication of the chemotherapy. And the stupid asshole, this corrupt man, his greed, now he's going to be going away for life, off other people's life because he wanted to sell more chemotherapy treatment. And there was nothing wrong with people. We had somebody here in the Linden area, a man died from getting cancer treatment, and he didn't even have cancer because he put his faith in this doctor. What we're asking is, open your eyes. People are corrupt every day. It doesn't matter if you're a politician, if you're a police officer, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you're a priest, if you are a teacher. Don't put all your faith in these people because there is corrupt, and these are people that are just bad. Not all of them, no. But go into it with your eyes open. Go into it with your eyes open. Because these are happening every day of our life. Every time you open up a newspaper, or every time you hear it on the news, that's all you hear, is about this corruptness and these people that do wrong because we put our faith in them. We put our faith in them because we've got our eyes closed. We don't go into it with our eyes wide open. We don't ask questions. We don't have the communication.
I'd say that if you got something going on in your life, health-wise, legal-wise, there are many brains are better than just one. Okay, and go to your friends, go to your family members, go to people who you might not know. Maybe your friend will say, I don't know how to tell you this, but I had a friend who went through this, so a friend of a friend. A lot of times get their input. No, don't take that for the gospel's truth or whatever. But I mean, examine that from your own perceptions with this other person's in mind. Measure that. See, the thing is, we have a tendency to want to go to somebody who's a specialist to be taken care of. And we got that mindset going on. Let these other people handle it. You're not. And the thing is, we have to allow that to happen to a certain degree. But we should be informed. And you got to become a mini expert in almost a lot of areas.
Exactly.
Let's face it, you got to know a little bit about taxes, you got a little bit about insurance, I'd encourage people to take insurance classes, even if it costs you like $105 or $120 if some group wants to offer that to you. Go for that training, because then if you take that training, you might be able to pass it on and save your own self a lot of money, maybe other people. You have to invest in yourself. You are the best resource. Your own brain, your own training, your own continuous education. And don't relinquish that. And if you think it's something just too simply complicated, seek out experts. Go watch YouTube videos. A lot of YouTube out there are put out by experts. Don't put out there by the hacks. Evaluate it from what the books say, but listen to other people at certain times.
Exactly. Now with the internet, we've opened our eyes to a different field too. That's there for us. To get educated. For those that didn't go to college or didn't finish high school, that internet is there, and all you got to do is just Google whatever, how do you do this, or what is this, or whatever, and there it is. It pops up with all the information you need.
2 years after in the inception of YouTube, after it started, was created, these guys called themselves the Ska Brothers, are doing the skit on YouTube talking about the content already at that point on YouTube. And at that point, that was like 2 years after after it was launched, there's already 74 years worth of viewing on YouTube. Okay, those are valuable assets. I mean, I use a lot of their information for when I buy equipment for the studio. I went and for the V-Stack that I use. I went and got online, saw this YouTube review that this guy did. They actually buy. Let's face it, people don't understand what knowledge costs, and what knowledge costs means it's all done pretty much by trial and error. Exactly. And if you can gain from somebody else's screw-ups and disasters, learn from that, because they paid a price for that. If they're willing to tell you that, that's invaluable. Don't dismiss it from the source or whatever. Evaluate it, but they have, and let's face it, you can learn from anybody. And don't get this arrogance. Don't get to, I'm an expert in this. Nobody's an expert in all fields. I mean, I worked in a college and a university as well. Most of those people, outside their own little area of expertise, were morons. Most of those people couldn't probably tie their own shoe without help, all right? So don't expect these college professors to know everything. They don't.
Definitely. You know what? And the whole thing is, I find that whether it's a judge or attorney or a doctor or whatever, you're getting their own personal opinions involved in whatever they do, So you want to open your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. And the big thing, to be honest with you, I mean, it's not that I was quiet, but I wanted to mind my own business. I didn't want to get involved, I seen alcoholics, I seen drug addicts. I had a lot of people in my life die, along the way, in school and after school, I remember when I went through school, we had a state champion state championship wrestler, got killed. It was a drug deal, in our little town of Fenton, where you didn't hear about this. It wasn't that big. But if you open up your eyes, you all had these different things go on in your life, and you remember it, drugs, alcohol, it's been around forever. It's been around forever. But now it seems like it's a lot more of it. There's a lot more of it, It was just very, very limited. At that time, maybe 1%, 2% that you've seen. But now, see, doctors are giving out opiates, for pain and stuff, like it's like candy. And the 10%, what happens is they fall into this addiction field, and it's hard for them to get out of it. See, when you're an addict, you become, you're a miserable person because you can't get out of it, and you don't know how to stay in it. You become this person that you lose your faith along the way, you lose your health, you lose your mind. And God knows what you do. You do anything and everything. You sell your ass, anything to get money. You become a dealer and an addict at the same time. You do anything to get your drugs. And a lot of times, the ones that are making you addicts, they turn their backs on you. They turn their backs on you. Here's a doctor that gives this oath, that I am to treat people for a better way of life or to live healthier. And once they become addicts, we turn our backs on them. Here, there's 1 million doctors, and there's less than 3,000 doctors that study addiction are in that field.
Well, look at who becomes doctors. To be successful as a doctor, you get into it usually right out of high school. You're a good student. You're good at learning. You get scored high in tests, which means you're a good regurgitator. That's what it is. The evaluative process is to ask questions of like, can I have an alternative explanation for why these results occurred? Those things don't occur. You accept it carte blanche. You accept it without really hesitation because you got to move on to the next thing. it's basically like it's like a conveyor belt system we have for the education system overall. Now, I don't know how to remedy that. Maybe a doctor would be a person who actually went through, some serious illness and then decide to go on that later and become a specialist in that area. But let's face it, that would be so costly. I mean, time-wise, lifetime-wise. But I mean, Nietzsche actually advocated that we have to have 6 doctors to treat sick people. I mean, so I mean, and you can see some intelligence there. I mean, they don't know. They don't know what they're up against. They don't know where to say this, what I'm reading and what I've been taught in medical school is not jiving in reality. They don't know they don't have the experience.
Look at Dr. Oz, not giving him a plug or whatever, but Dr. Oz, he's a surgeon, and his philosophy is he doesn't really believe in modern medicine. He tells you all the natural way of how to heal, how to get rid of diabetes or high blood pressure or different things. He tells you eat this,
Address the root. I mean, that's like, let's face it, address the root. And that's that's the reason I don't like popular things a lot of times. But what I've heard about Dr. Oz and what I've seen on YouTube, the people who post his videos, there's a lot of stuff he does convey to his audience that is very useful.
Exactly.
I mean, okay, chiropractic treatment. Okay, I don't think it's going to cure everything. But I think if you got a problem with pain, address the source of pain. If something's misfiring, if you feel some sparks going down your leg, it probably is a nerve problem kind of created by your spine. See if you can get that adjusted. I've seen the power of a chiropractic,
Exactly.
believe me, personally.
Exactly.
So I mean, why is that so bizarro to think that, basically use the analogy of a wiring, miswired. When you're out of alignment, that's being shut up. Why is it so new ageist to some doctors to even consider that?
Most of the DOs, I mean, they have like chiropractic in there and MD kind of cross, I remember I used to go see this doctor when I was younger. He was a DO, and he would give me an adjustment, at the same time. So I was like...
They used to do that more, but ODs now, what I've seen, and I've went to ODs and MDs. I preferred ODs. My mom was an OD, not fanatic, but I'd say a devotee. She really believed in that because she always believed in a multi-approach. I think that's more intelligent. To use medicine for everything, I think, is very limiting. But but now they're hesitant to do the chiropractic treatments or the readjustments or alignments. Right. They don't seem to be doing that as much. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, our doctor, we went to an OD. He did it all the time. He also did acupuncture, which sound really new age-ish. Yeah. But I mean, basically, people have found out reason something works, and they use it. Now, they have this arrogance to believe that we can, we'll just give you a pill for that. And, what do you want to, I want to be a witch. What do you want me to be, a witch doctor? Well, no. There are some things that work that sound strange. But let's face it, I mean, they found out now that there's a herbal tea that you can actually soak your feet in to get rid of fungus. Then it works much better than the prescription drugs do.
Exactly.
It's an herbal tea. We drink this stuff. I mean, it might be really repulsive to drink. I mean, I would recommend drinking it and not putting it into a bowl first for your feet, then drinking it. I mean, drink it for if you want to drink it. But I mean, it does work better. So I mean, why is this stuff so bizarre? I mean, people have this arrogance to, we don't do that nowadays. What is that, witchcraft? No, it's people found out it works and they apply it. I mean, I don't see why they got this resistance against that.
You know what? That's just it. Our time is flying by so much that we want to take a shortcut to everything, and we just think that there's a pill for everything, and there isn't, because guess what? For every pill that there is something for, there's a side effect that's even worse than what was wrong with you in the first place. There is no shortcut, ladies and gentlemen. The whole thing is in our hands, and we make time for what's important to us, and that's the whole thing. Our days are flying by, but we make time to what's important. And there's nothing more important than our family and our health. And there is no shortcuts for that. There's no shortcuts for that. Again, what we want to do is just open your eyes, okay? Ask questions, because that's the only way we can learn. And hold people accountable for whatever field you're going to see them for. Hold them accountable, because they're supposedly the specialists, and that's why you come to see them in the first place. Okay? Expect when you're paying for that time to see whoever you're seeing, that you get their undivided attention, and they're listening to what you're asking of them and what you're telling them. Again, We can put our heads in the sand and say these things aren't happening, but that does not make it go away. Things are happening, and it's upon us to make a change. It's upon us to accept what is happening to us, or to say enough is enough, and we want things different. I want things different. I can't bring my daughter back, but I'm hoping that I can educate somebody, that somebody hears my voice or hears what I'm saying, and you save your child, or I save your child. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay? You know, when it started, all this, when we started with Community Parent and we started doing Chasing the Dragon, it was about one person. Can we just save one person's life from telling Brianna's story? Well, I'll tell you, I know we've saved quite a few people's lives because I've seen some of these feedbacks. But along the way, this addiction, we're still losing a lot of people. Losing a lot of people. Please, I want you to join me in this cause. I want you to open your eyes, get your head out of the sand, and let's make a difference together. Because one hand just does not clap by itself. And I need you to get involved. Your kids need you to get involved. Your parents need you to get involved. Whoever's struggling in this addiction, we can make a difference. Because, see, it's hope. And your support is the only thing that's going to get them out of it. This is a chronic disease. And it is. It's a disease that doesn't go away. It's a fight every day to get clean. But get your head out of the sand. Together, we can make a difference. My name is Sam Jahari. I come to you from Community Parent, and I'm hoping that you guys become involved in what's going on around you. We're losing, every 19 minutes we lose somebody to addiction. That's just crazy. Please. Again, I'm Sam Jahari. I'm out of here.